when Evergreen was actively blowing up, I was saying, you know, I completely understand why all of the people who are coming to us privately to say, I see what's going on and I support you, but I can't have your back publicly. I felt very generous to them then, and I feel less generous to them now. And I actually I'm a little surprised that that's the direction it's gone. What is clear is if there is a fever pitch, if there is a moment, then you need a critical mass of people to stand up, and you can stop it. I don't know what the equivalent of that is when there's not a precipitating event, right? Because most of social media is just this slow burn, and I don't know what it would mean to stand up en masse there. I don't think there is any virtual equivalent in that slow burn space. But when there is an event and someone is, someone's the witch. When someone's a witch and there are 30% of people in the organization who are privately saying, oh my God, this is really dangerous and bad. And half of them are saying to the would-be witch, I know you're not a witch, but I can't stand up. If that 15%, and I'm making up numbers here, but if some substantial minority of people can actually see what's going on, and I think that's actually a conservative estimate, and then even 50% of those people said, this will not stand, not in my name, no, then those events can get turned back. And I don't, in the particular case of my story, I don't know that the institution was savable, even if 15% of the faculty and staff had gone public with, and we know that at least that number of people actually saw what was going on and didn't approve. But in some cases, systems aren't that far gone and they would be savable, and it requires courage. And that wasn't easy for me to feel back when we were losing 2 tenured positions and that was all we knew. And it feels easy to, it may feel like it's easy for me to say now with the hindsight of 4 years and effectively being funded by the crowd. And it's both less security and vastly more security. Most people won't end up in, being able to transition in that way, nor will they want to, exactly as you said, Constantine. So how can you encourage people to stand up in defense of the system that they are in, the functionality of the institution that they're at, such that it can continue on without being captured, without any more witch hunts? That's the piece of it that I don't exactly know.
No, it has to be something like don't lie. Like if you're being called upon to lie or to bury your head in the sand, well, where's that going to end? It's not going to stop. It isn't how it works as far as I can tell. So it has to be something like that. And I mean, I'm not saying these are easy decisions. I'm certainly not saying that I made the right decision. I hope that they'd have to cart my skeleton out of the University of Toronto. I liked my job a lot. It was just fine. And, it's been nothing but chaos and upheaval since then. I mean, I have been rewarded, but I haven't been rewarded with security, something like that. That's not the right word exactly.
Stability, maybe.
Yeah, well, it's high risk, high reward, fine. Right. But I would have settled for much less reward and much less risk. So, and I was perfectly happy with that. Now, I'm not ungrateful for what I've accrued in the meantime, but it's not an improvement, that's for sure. And I wouldn't lecture people about, their moral obligation, because you've pointed out the problem. It's the proximal cost and the distal reward, right? You see a system degenerating, and you're going to say something, and the cost to you is going to be bloody high, and the impact is going to be perhaps not even measurable. But then you run into the problem that Heather just described, which is, well, if 70% of you don't like what's going on and you don't say anything, then, where is it going to end? And people have to make those moral decisions for themselves. The only thing that I know, perhaps, is that lying doesn't seem like a good idea, and being forced to, particularly, this is where I took my stand. I'm not saying other things that other people want me to say. It's like, up yours. You go and live the consequences of your speech, and I'll live the consequences of mine. And I'm not going to live the consequences of your speech. And that's where my government went too far as I was concerned. It's like, no, no compelled speech. I don't give a damn what your rationale is. Because why should I trust your rationale when you're transgressing against something so sacred? Why would I possibly trust your rationale? There isn't anything more sacred than the word. I mean, unless you want to just dispense with our accrued morality in its entirety, the one thing we've more or less agreed on in the, you know, relatively Christian West, or perhaps the Judeo-Christian West, is that the word is sacred. Well, if you want to throw that out, be my guest, but you're not getting me to throw that out. So now, whether I'm right about that or not, well, probably, you know, right, Christ, there's lots of ways I'm not right, I can tell you that, but lying is not a good idea.
You say that lying is not a good idea. Do we need to redefine the meaning of courage? In particular, when we look at courage, what it used to mean in generations past, going to war, well, really, you look at a lot of the courageous people now, they tend to be whistleblowers. They tend to be people who stand out from the crowd and say that they don't agree. Do we need to redefine what it means to be courageous?
I think that's always been the case. I mean, if you look at the prophetic tradition in the Old Testament, that's just one story after another of society degenerating towards a tyrannical state and a prophetic voice emerging, you know, representative of God in some abstract sense, saying, be careful, you're deviating from the proper path, and if you don't think there are going to be consequences, you're just not paying enough attention. Well, you know, how do you distinguish a false prophet from a true prophet? I don't know, maybe the false prophet tells you what you want to hear.
I guess I would just add to that I think physical courage and mental courage are related, that there's a reason that we use one word for both, and that in the modern world, there's far less opportunity to manifest physical courage or to know what it would be like. And, you know, it's been much discussed, and I agree with the sense that, you know, the lack of war is both beautiful and in some ways demasculinizing for society, not having that as even a possibility on the horizon. And there, you know, there's plenty of things that girls and women do as well that requires physical courage, but it tends to look different. And in our disembodied, behind screens, especially for the last, you know, especially during COVID era, just, you know, aphysical lives, without having any sense of what physical courage might be or what physical risk might be, of course, we're now also more confused about mental courage. And so, you know, being told things like silence is violence and also speech is violence. So, you know, the whole thing just falls apart very quickly.